Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going really deep into this idea of like crafting a life that's really fulfilling and not just, professionally, but like in every aspect,
Yeah.
personally. And our guide for this is this really cool book called Unchan Uncommon Wisdom to Inspire Your Life's Work.
Right.
And it's a collection of insights from this Harvard Business School professor, Howard Stevenson, and interviews with some pretty amazing people, I think you would agree, who have really made their mark on the world.
Yeah, what I thought was really intriguing about this book is that the central premise is that you should treat your life like a business. And,
Yeah.
they encourage you to come up with a really detailed operating plan for success, both in your career and your personal life.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
So many of us get so caught up in like the day-to-day grind, and this book is really pushing us to like define what success actually means for us, individually.
Exactly. And the authors, Eric C. Sinoway and Meadow, they don't waste any time diving into some really powerful concepts right off the bat. They start with this idea of inflection points.
Okay.
And it's a term they borrowed from Intel's Andy Grove. And basically, these are events that force us to shift our thinking and our actions, and they often present really unique opportunities.
Okay, so inflection points. So I'm guessing it's not just like, huge life events. They can be positive, negative, or even like seemingly neutral.
Yeah, you got it. A perfect example is the Apollo 13 mission. When that oxygen tank exploded, it was a massive inflection point.
Oh, wow.
Suddenly, the crew, they had to make this really radical decision
Yeah.
to use the moon's gravity to slingshot the spacecraft back to Earth.
That's incredible. I mean, that's a powerful analogy, but I mean, how does this apply to like our everyday lives, I mean, we're not facing like life or death scenarios like that on a regular basis, hopefully.
Yeah. Right, true. But we all encounter inflection points in our careers. Our relationships and our personal lives. It could be like a company restructuring a sudden illness, even a global pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
The key is to recognize these moments and respond proactively.
So instead of just like reacting and kind of getting swept along, we need to look at these inflection points as opportunities to kind of steer ourselves towards what we truly want.
Absolutely. Imagine your company announces, a major reorganization.
Yeah.
Do you see it as a threat to your job security or a chance to redefine your role, maybe acquire some new skills that make you even more valuable?
Right.
Inflection points are all about seizing those moments.
It's about taking control, not just letting life happen to you.
Exactly. And, building on that idea of proactive response, the book's next core concept is all about taking that long view. It's
Okay.
called Starting with the End in Mind, and it challenges us to look beyond that daily grind and to find the legacy we want to leave behind.
So instead of getting bogged down in the to-do list, the emails, the constant demands, we should be thinking about the bigger picture. Huh?
Yeah.
That sounds a little bit like that classic exercise, like imagine your own eulogy.
It is. And it might seem a little morbid at first, but it's incredibly powerful when you think about what you want people to say about you when you're gone. It forces you to confront, your values and how you're actually living your life.
I mean, isn't that a little bit overwhelming, though?
Yeah.
Like focusing on our legacy? I mean, that feels like a lot of pressure.
It's not about, achieving some grandiose level of fame or fortune. It's about defining those personal values, the qualities and contributions that are truly important to you. What kind of person do you want to be remembered as?
Yeah.
What impact do you want to have on the world, even in a small way?
Okay, that makes it feel a little bit more manageable. So it's about aligning our actions with our values, both in our work and our personal lives.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this brings us to a story from the book about a man named George. He was a friend of yours, right?
Yeah, George had achieved, what most people would consider the picture of success financially, well-off, beautiful home, family, hobbies, involved in the community, but he was deeply unhappy.
Right. And this is where the book's concept of faux multidimensionality comes into play. Professor Stevenson analyzed George's situation and realized that he was engaging in all of these activities, not because he enjoyed them, but because he felt they were necessary for networking or business advancement, projecting a certain image.
Wow, that is such a great way to put it. I've definitely felt that pressure myself. Like, I need to be involved in all of these things to be considered successful.
Yeah, it's a trap that many of us fall into. It's the difference between joining a board because you're passionate about their mission
Right.
versus doing it just to pad your resume.
Yeah.
Or, taking up a hobby because you genuinely enjoy it versus, doing it because you think it will make you seem more well-rounded to potential clients or something.
So what does this all mean for our operating plan for life?
It means we need to be ruthlessly honest with ourselves about our motivations. Are the things we're spending our time on actually aligned with our values and bringing us joy? Or are they just another box to check on that success checklist?
That's a powerful question. I'm going to have to really think about that one.
Yeah, we all should, because without a clear vision of our end goal, that desired legacy, we risk filling our lives with activities and obligations that don't actually matter to us.
Thinking about my friend George, I can definitely see how that happened to him.
Well,
he was so focused on building this image of success that he lost sight of what truly mattered.
Yeah, and that's the danger of not being intentional about how we spend our time and energy. We end up living someone else's version of a successful life instead of crafting our own.
Okay. I'm starting to see how all these concepts are kind of interconnected. We need to be aware of these inflection points and use them to our advantage, define our desired legacy, and make sure the things that we're pursuing are actually aligned with our values and contribute to that bigger picture.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach to creating a fulfilling life, one that integrates our work, our relationships, our personal interests, and our aspirations for the future.
This has given me a lot to think about, and I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same way. But before we dive into some practical tips and strategies for putting all of this into practice, I want to share a personal story that really brought these concepts to life for me.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, as some of you may know, my son was born prematurely a few years ago, and let me tell you that experience threw any semblance of work-life balance right out the window.
Oh, wow. It sounds like that was an incredibly challenging time. I can only imagine the emotional and logistical roller coaster you must have been on.
Oh, it was definitely intense. All of a sudden, my carefully crafted schedule and, my to-do list went out the window. I was juggling work responsibilities with countless trips to the NICU and doctor appointments and just all of the anxiety that comes with having a preemie. Yeah, and, this experience really ties into the book's approach to work-life balance. Yeah. It's not about striving for this perfect equilibrium where every aspect of your life gets equal attention. Sinoway and Meadow, they emphasize that it's more about making those conscious choices about where you invest your finite resources, your time, your energy, and even your emotions.
That resonates so much with me. It was impossible to maintain any kind of balance during that period. It was more about prioritizing what mattered most, in that moment, and making peace with the fact that some things would have to slide.
Exactly. Life throws those curveballs, and sometimes it's about damage control, not perfection. But even amidst the chaos, you were still making choices that reflected your values. You were a dedicated parent while also, trying to keep your business afloat. And, the authors of your book actually have a very similar story. Sinoway left his high-powered consulting career to be a more present father for his children.
That's so true. I remember setting up a makeshift office in the hospital cafeteria, trying to answer emails and keep projects moving forward between feedings and doctor visits. It wasn't pretty, but it allowed me to be present for my son while also honoring my commitments.
Right. And that's a great example of how work-life integration can look in practice. It's not always about compartmentalizing different areas of your life. Sometimes it's about finding those creative ways to weave them together, especially during those, challenging times. Do you think this experience permanently shifted your definition of work-life balance?
Absolutely. It was a real wake-up call. I realized that the traditional model of work-life balance, that compartmentalized approach, just didn't work for me. It's more about understanding my priorities, knowing my limits and making choices that align with my values in each moment.
And that's a valuable lesson for anyone, regardless of their specific circumstances. The key is to be intentional about how we're spending our time and energy.
Speaking of intentionality, the book highlights some great examples of people who've really mastered this, like Kirk Posmantour, my business partner and a master networker. Have you ever met him?
I haven't had the pleasure, but I'm familiar with his work. He's known for building genuine connections and seamlessly integrating them into his professional life. From what I understand, he kind of found a winning formula early on, blending creativity, networking, and a real talent for creating partnerships that benefit everyone involved.
He's incredible, and his secret is genuine enthusiasm. He loves connecting people, and seeing those connections lead to something amazing for Kirk. It's not just about networking, it's about building relationships and making a positive impact.
Yeah, that's a powerful reminder that work can be both successful and fulfilling when it aligns with our natural strengths and passions.
And it ties back to that idea of creating an operating plan for life, one that integrates our values, our passions, and our aspirations.
Exactly. And speaking of aspirations, the book also delves into the potential pitfalls of pursuing a seemingly well-rounded life. We touched on this earlier with that concept of faux multidimensionality.
Right. That idea of engaging in activities, not because we genuinely enjoy them, but because we feel like we should dissect to achieve success or project a certain image. I know I've definitely fallen into that trap before.
It's a common struggle, especially in today's achievement-oriented culture. We're constantly bombarded with messages about what we should be doing, achieving, experiencing.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in that and lose sight of what truly matters to us.
So how do we avoid that trap? How do we make sure we're not just going through the motions, but actually living a life that feels authentic and fulfilling?
That's where the importance of self-awareness comes in. It's about taking a step back, tuning out the external noise, and really listening to our inner voice.
It's about asking ourselves those tough questions. What brings me joy? What am I passionate about? What kind of impact do I want to have on the world?
Precisely, it's about defining our own version of success and making sure that the activities we choose are truly aligned with that vision.
I'm thinking about one of the stories in the book about Wendy Kopp, the founder of Teach for America. She saw a problem, a lack of quality teachers in under-resourced schools, and she took action. She created a whole new path for talented college graduates to make a difference while also, gaining valuable experience.
Kopp's story is a fantastic example of aligning passion with action. Despite facing skepticism and resistance, she persevered, driven by her belief in the power of education and her vision for a more equitable society.
It's so inspiring, but I'm also curious about stories like Arvind Raghunathan's. He was a computer scientist on track for a successful academic career. But a chance encounter with a book ignited a new passion, finance. He took a leap of faith, left academia, and became a successful entrepreneur.
Raghunathan's story is a great example of embracing inflection points and being open to new possibilities.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most fulfilling paths are the ones we least expect.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing those moments that challenge us to reassess our direction and having the courage to pursue those new paths, even if they seem unconventional. It's so easy to get stuck on a path just because it's the one you started on, but life is full of forks in the road.
Speaking of unconventional paths, Lori Shore's story really resonated with me. She went through several career changes, always guided by, a deep understanding of her values and a commitment to living a life true to herself.
I love her story. It's such a great example of someone who prioritized her own definition of success, not what society or external expectations dictated. She wasn't afraid to keep trying new things until she found work that truly lit her up.
Yeah, and that's such an important message. We all have the power to choose our path, to define what success and fulfillment mean for us.
So much of this comes down to self-awareness, doesn't it? Really taking the time to understand our values, our strengths, our passions, and what we truly want out of life. It's not always easy, but it's essential for crafting a life that feels both successful and meaningful.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing process of exploration, reflection, and action. And sometimes it requires us to step outside of our comfort zones, challenge our assumptions, and be willing to course correct along the way.
Wow, it feels like we've covered so much ground already.
Yeah.
From inflection points and work-life integration to defining our desired legacy and avoiding that trap of faux multidimensionality.
It's true.
But I'm curious, how do we take all these brilliant insights and actually, put them into practice? It feels a little daunting.
Yeah, it's true. There's a difference between understanding these concepts intellectually and actually, integrating them into our lives.
Right.
Remember that analogy from the book about, treating our lives as a business. Crafting that operating plan might seem overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be.
So I guess it starts with that eulogy exercise, right?
Yeah.
Imagining what we want people to say about us when we're gone. But it's more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about getting to the core of who you are and what truly matters to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about achievements or accolades.
It's about identifying the values that guide your decisions and shape your actions. The authors even have a list of values in the book, things like integrity, compassion, creativity, sense of humor. It runs the gamut.
So it's less about achieving specific goals and more about just kind of living in alignment with those values, even if those values are really different from what the people around you are prioritizing.
Exactly. It's about asking yourself those tough questions, like what kind of person do I want to be? What impact do I want to have on the world? And those answers are going to be unique to each individual.
Which can be a challenge, especially when we're constantly bombarded with messages about what success should look like. How do we tune out that noise and really tap into our own, inner compass? That's where self-awareness becomes so crucial. It's a journey of self-discovery, and it's not always easy. Sometimes it requires us to question our assumptions, challenge our beliefs, even confront those ingrained societal expectations that might be holding us back. A therapist can help a trusted mentor. Journaling, even just taking some time for quiet reflection can help us untangle all of that.
Laurie Shore's story, which we discussed earlier, really embodies that. She wasn't afraid to experiment with different careers and make unconventional choices until she found work that truly aligned with her values and brought her joy.
Absolutely. Her story is a great example of how powerful it could be to define success on our own terms, not by someone else's standards. It's not about following a prescribed path. It's about blazing your own trail.
I love that. And it's not just about our careers. This applies to all areas of our lives, our relationships, our hobbies, how we choose to spend our free time. All of it should be a reflection of who we are and what we truly value.
Precisely. It's about approaching life with intentionality.
Right.
Whether you're choosing a career path, deciding how to spend your weekend, or navigating a complex relationship. Ask yourself, does this choice align with my values? Does this action move me closer to the person I want to be?
That idea of intentionality really resonates with me. It's about being mindful of our choices and making sure they're in service of our bigger vision.
Exactly. And the book actually cautions against falling into the trap of faux multidimensionality in our personal lives, too.
Yeah.
It's the same principle. Are we pursuing hobbies or activities because we genuinely enjoy them?
Yeah.
Or because we think they'll make us, seem more well-rounded or successful to others?
So easy to fall into that trap. I think back to all those times I signed up for classes or joined groups just because I felt like I should be doing those things, but I wasn't truly passionate about them. I ended up feeling drained and unfulfilled, even though from the outside it might have looked like I had, a very full and interesting life.
Right. That's the danger of not being authentic in our choices. We might be checking off boxes and accumulating experiences, but are those experiences truly enriching our lives and, contributing to our overall well-being?
So how do we bridge the gap between intention and action? We can have all these amazing insights and intentions, but how do we actually translate them into tangible changes in our lives?
That's where that concept of an operating plan for life becomes really useful. It's about taking those values, those aspirations, those insights, and weaving them into the fabric of our daily decisions and actions. It's not about creating some rigid plan. It's more about setting a direction and then taking small, consistent steps towards it.
So it's about creating kind of a framework for decision-making, a guiding principle that helps us navigate the inevitable twists and turns of life.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that this is an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Not a one-time exercise.
Right.
Life throws curveballs. Circumstances changes. Our priorities evolve.
Which brings to mind the story of Arvind Raghunathan, who made that, dramatic career shift from academia to finance. It wasn't a linear path. It was about recognizing an inflection point, taking a chance, and having the courage to pursue a new direction.
Exactly. It's about being open to new possibilities, even when those possibilities lead us down unconventional paths. And sometimes those unexpected detours lead to the most incredible destinations. Remember, failure is a part of growth.
Yeah.
The authors of your book, they don't shy away from talking about their setbacks. Sinoway had a business go bankrupt, and Meadow struggled to make ends meet as an artist for a long time.
So it's not about having all the answers or avoiding setbacks altogether. It's about having the courage to keep learning, keep growing, and keep adjusting our course as we go.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into crafting a fulfilling life, what's the key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is this. You have the power to create a life that is both successful and fulfilling on your own terms. It starts with defining your own version of success, identifying your core values, and having the courage to make choices that align with those values.
It's a journey of self-discovery, intentionality, and action. And it's okay if that journey is messy, unpredictable, and full of twists and turns.
Absolutely. Embrace the imperfections, celebrate the successes, learn from the setbacks, and remember, you're not alone on this journey.
Before we sign off, is there one final thought, one nugget of wisdom you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I'd ask them to envision a photograph of their ideal life at the very end.
Right.
What would that picture look like? Who would be in it? What would you be doing? What would you be feeling? Let that image serve as a guiding star as you navigate the choices, big and small, that shape your life.
That's such a powerful image. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive. We hope you found it as thought-provoking and inspiring as we have.
The pleasure was all mine.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep crafting a life that brings you joy, fulfillment, and a sense of purpose.